What the hell are you doing on my land?" My voice tore through the morning air like a gunshot. The construction workers froze 5 men in hard hats, mid-swing with sledgehammers, staring at me like I'd just materialized out of the Montana dust. Behind them, a woman in a crimson blazer stood beside a brand new SUV, clipboard pressed to her chest like a shield. Her red heels sank into my dirt, and she didn't even have the decency to look apologetic. "Mr. Morgan?" she said with a smile that could freeze whiskey. "I'm Victoria Ashford, Silver Creek Estates HOA president. We're simply completing the community access road." "Community access?" I was shouting again, couldn't help it. Fresh asphalt gleamed in the June sun, cutting a black scar straight through the pasture where my grandfather used to run cattle in 1947. "That's my pasture! You tore down my fence! You paved over land that's been in my family for 75 years! She didn't flinch, just smoothed her blazer and gestured at the workers like she was directing a symphony. The HOA board voted unanimously to extend Silver Creek Drive through this section. It improves property values for the entire community. "I don't give a damn about your property values." I stormed toward her, boots crushing fresh gravel. "You don't own this land. I do. Every inch of it is mine, backed by deeds older than you are." Victoria's smile tightened. "Actually, if you'd read the notice we sent 3 weeks ago, you'd know the HOA exercised its annexation rights under..." "Annexation?" The word came out like venom. "You can't annex land you don't own. That's called theft, lady." One of the workers muttered, "Maybe we should..." "You keep working," Victoria snapped at him, then turned back to me with ice in her eyes. "Mr. Morgan, you're being unreasonable. This road benefits everyone. Your refusal to cooperate is selfish," and I grabbed the nearest construction sign, bright orange, said "Road Work Ahead," and hurled it into the ditch. It clanged against a culvert pipe with a sound that echoed across the valley. "Get off my property." The workers started backing toward their trucks. Victoria's face flushed crimson to match her blazer. "You can't threaten my crew." "I'm not threatening. I'm telling. You've got 60 seconds to clear out before I call the sheriff and report trespassing, vandalism, and theft. This is a legal community improvement. 50 seconds. She pulled out her phone, fingers shaking with rage. "You're making a huge mistake. The HOA will..." 40 seconds. The workers were already in their trucks, engines roaring to life. Victoria stood alone in her designer heels, an expensive blazer, phone clutched in one hand, clipboard in the other, looking like a general whose army had just deserted. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You're damn right it's not," I said quietly, "because every inch of that asphalt is evidence. And when I'm done with you in court, you'll be paying to rip it all out and replant every blade of grass your bulldozers destroyed." She climbed into her SUV without another word. As she drove away, tires spitting gravel, I could see her on the phone, probably calling her lawyer, maybe the cops, definitely someone who'd tell her she'd just made the biggest mistake of her HOA career. I stood there in the middle of that illegal road, hands shaking not with fear, but with pure, cold fury. Behind me, my ranch house sat quiet. In front of me, a fresh scar of asphalt, cut through land my family had protected for 3 generations. They thought they could pave over me, erase me, turn my heritage into their shortcut. They had no idea what they'd just started, because this wasn't just about a road anymore. This was war. And I was about to teach Silver Creek Estates HOA that you don't steal from a Montana rancher. Not today. Not ever. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm 52 years old, 3rd-generation rancher in Gallatin County, Montana. My grandfather, Samuel Morgan, homesteaded this land in 1947, 400 acres of rolling hills, grazing pasture, and a spring-fed creek that never runs dry. He raised cattle. My father expanded into hay and horses. When Dad died in 2018, heart attack in the barn, still wearing his work gloves, I inherited the whole operation. The land, the responsibility, the legacy. and the knowledge that this soil means something, not just to me, but to everyone who came before. That's why when I stepped outside that morning in June 2024 and saw construction trucks tearing through my south pasture, my first thought wasn't anger, it was disbelief. How could anyone think they had the right? But they did think it, and they'd already done it. The road was maybe 200 yards long, running from the new Silver Creek Estates subdivision straight through my grazing land to connect with the county highway. Fresh asphalt, painted lines. Even a goddamn stop sign planted in soil my grandfather had turned with a hand plow. I'd heard the engines at dawn, thought maybe a neighbor's tractor had broken down, but when I came outside with my coffee, I found something worse. Theft. Dressed up as community improvement. Silver Creek Estates had been built 5 years ago on what used to be the old Henderson Ranch. The Hendersons sold out to developers when their kids moved to California and didn't want to farm. Within 2 years, cookie-cutter houses sprouted like mushrooms, all beige, all identical, all governed by an HOA with more rules than the U.S. tax code. At first, I didn't mind. New neighbors meant new customers for my hay. Some of them even seemed nice young families, retirees looking for mountain views. But then Victoria Ashford moved in, bought the biggest house on the ridge. Within 6 months, she was HOA president. Within a year, she was sending me letters. First one complained about my cattle being visible from the community walking trail. I wrote back, "It's a ranch. Cattle are kind of the point." Second one demanded I paint my barn to harmonize with neighborhood aesthetics. I didn't bother responding. Third one came with a $300 fine for having farm equipment improperly stored within sight of HOA property. That's when I drove over to her house. She answered the door in yoga pants and silk, holding a wine glass at 10 a.m. Behind her, I could see granite countertops, a chandelier, and one of those ridiculous indoor water feature walls. "Mr. Morgan," she said, not inviting me in, "what can I do for you?" I held up the fine. "You can explain why you think you can charge me for keeping my tractor on my own land. The HOA has standards. I'm not in your HOA, but your property borders ours, which means visual impact falls under—" "My property was here first," I said, voice level. "By 70 years, she smiled. That same cold smile I'd see 100 times over the next year. "Times change, Mr. Morgan. This is a residential community now. Perhaps you should consider modernizing your operations." "Modernizing," I repeated. "You mean get rid of my ranch so you can look at something prettier?" "I mean adapt," she said. "Or we could discuss purchasing some of your acreage. I'm sure we could arrange something fair." That's when I understood. She didn't just want my farm to look different. She wanted it gone. I drove home, tore up the fine, and tried to forget about it. But Victoria Ashford wasn't the forgetting type. Over the next year, the letters kept coming. Complaints about dust, noise from cattle, the unsightly appearance of my equipment, each one more aggressive than the last. I ignored them all. My land wasn't part of the HOA, and she knew it. But then that morning in June, I woke up to engines. And when I stepped outside, I found they'd stopped asking. They'd just taken. The road cut right through my south pasture, the same field where my grandfather used to graze his first herd, where my father taught me to ride at age 7, where I'd scattered Dad's ashes 3 years ago. And now it was paved, black, permanent, stolen. After Victoria and her workers cleared out, I walked the length of that road. Every step felt like walking through a graveyard. My boots left prints in the fresh asphalt, probably the only boots that belonged there. The fence posts they'd torn down lay in a heap beside a culvert, wire tangled like broken promises. Survey markers, the ones proving my property line, had been knocked over or buried under gravel. I took pictures. Hundreds of them. Every angle, every destroyed post, every inch of trespassing evidence. Then I called my neighbor, Ben Caldwell, old rancher, sharp mind, survived 3 divorces and 2 market crashes. "Ben," I said when he answered, "you know a good lawyer?" "Depends. What'd you do?" "Didn't do anything, but the HOA just paved a road through my pasture." Long silence. They what? You heard me. Jesus, Daniel, that's not just illegal, that's stupid. That's Victoria Ashford, he snorted. Say no more. I know exactly who you need. Grace Patterson, best property rights attorney in Montana. She'll tear that HOA apart like a wolf in a henhouse. I called Grace that afternoon. Her secretary said she could see me the next morning. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat on the porch, staring at that road glowing under the security lights, and tried to figure out how this had become my life. The next day, I drove to Bozeman. Grace Patterson's office sat above a coffee shop that smelled like espresso and opportunity. When I walked in, she was already waiting, mid-50s, sharp eyes, handshake like a vice. Mr. Morgan, she said, gesturing to a chair. Ben told me about your situation. Show me everything. I spread the photos across her desk. The road, the destroyed fence, the buried survey markers. She studied each one in silence, occasionally making notes. This is textbook trespass, she said finally. Did they get your permission? Never asked. Did they file permits? I checked. Nothing on file with the county. She smiled, not friendly, more like a predator, spotting wounded prey. Then they've committed multiple felonies. Trespass, destruction of property, falsification of permits if they claimed they had authorization. Mr. Morgan, you don't just have a case, you have a demolition derby. What do I do? First, we document everything. Photos, timestamps, witness statements. Then, we file an injunction to stop all construction. After that, she leaned back, eyes gleaming. We take them to court and watch them bleed. I liked her immediately. Over the next week, Grace and I built a case thicker than a hay bale. We pulled my property deeds dating back to 1947, every inch documented. We requested HOA meeting minutes, construction invoices, board votes, and that's when we found it. The HOA had never voted to build the road. Victoria had authorized it herself using emergency community improvement powers that didn't actually exist in their bylaws. She'd hired a contractor, paid with HOA funds, and started construction without board approval. In other words, embezzlement, fraud, and trespass, all wrapped in a crimson blazer. Daniel, Grace said, showing me the documents, this woman didn't just break the law, she shattered it. Can we stop the road? We can do better than that. We can make her rip it out herself. The injunction hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, Victoria sent me 3 more letters, each one more threatening than the last. You are in violation of HOA bylaws. Failure to cooperate will result in legal action. Your obstruction of community access is unacceptable. I framed them all, evidence for the collection. But I wasn't content to just wait for court. That road sat there like an insult, mocking me every time I looked out the window. So, one morning, I made a decision. If they wanted a road through my land, they'd have to get past me first. I climbed into my John Deere 7430, the same tractor Dad bought in 2005. Still runs like a dream, and drove it straight to the middle of that illegal road. Parked it dead center, killed the engine. Set the brake. Then I dragged 2 massive hay bales from the barn and stacked them across each lane. Pounded a wooden sign into the dirt. Private property. No trespassing. And for good measure, I backed my F-250 up behind the tractor. Let them try to move that. By noon, 3 Silver Creek residents had driven up, seen the blockade, and turned around. One of them, a woman in a Tesla, rolled down her window. Excuse me, is this road closed? Permanently, I said. It was never legal to begin with. But the HOA said the HOA lied. She drove away without another word. At 1 p.m., Victoria showed up. Same crimson blazer, same cold smile, same clipboard clutched like a weapon. Mr. Morgan, she said through clenched teeth, you are obstructing a community road. I'm protecting private property. This road serves 30 families. This road is illegal. It's on my land, and it's staying blocked until a judge tells you to rip it out. Her face flushed. You're making a huge mistake. No, Victoria, you made the mistake. And now the whole county's about to watch you pay for it. She pulled out her phone, hand shaking. I'm calling the sheriff. Good. Tell him to bring his surveying equipment. I'd love to show him where your road crosses my property line. The sheriff, Mike Donovan, knew him from the Cattlemen's Association, showed up 20 minutes later. He took one look at the Blockade, then at Victoria, then at me. Daniel, he said carefully, you want to tell me what's going on? I showed him my property deed. The survey map. The photos of construction without permits. They built a road through my pasture, Mike. Without asking. Without permits. Without authorization. Mike turned to Victoria. Ma'am, did you get permission from Mr. Morgan? The HOA board. That's not what I asked. Her silence was answer enough. Mike sighed. Ma'am, this is a civil matter. You'll need to resolve it in court. Until then, Mr. Redacted. Morgan has every right to block access to his own property. Victoria looked like she'd been slapped. But I suggest you contact your attorney, Mike said. Have a good day, folks. He drove away. Victoria stood there, fuming, before finally getting in her SUV and speeding off. I climbed back onto the tractor, settled into the seat, and smiled. The war had officially begun. And I'd just won the first battle. Over the next few days, the blockade became a spectacle. Word spread fast in a county where everyone knows everyone's business. By the end of the week, neighbors were stopping by, some to offer support, others just to see the crazy rancher who took on the HOA. Ben Caldwell brought me coffee one morning. You're making waves, Daniel. Good. Maybe they'll finally learn you can't just steal people's land. Think they'll back down? No, but I don't need them to back down. I need them to lose. The HOA tried everything. They sent official notices, hired private security to intimidate me. Didn't work. Even started a Facebook campaign calling me a community obstructionist. The comments section backfired spectacularly. Maybe don't build roads on land you don't own? Team Daniel all the way. HOAs are just legalized extortion. One resident, a man named Thomas Reed, sent me a private message. I voted against Victoria 3 times. She ignores the board and does whatever she wants. If you're taking her to court, I'll testify. I saved that message. Added it to the growing file. Meanwhile, Grace was busy. She'd filed the injunction, requested HOA financial records, and deposed 3 board members. Each one told the same story. Victoria authorized the road on her own, used HOA funds without approval, falsified meeting minutes to cover her tracks. Daniel, Grace said during one of our meetings, this isn't just civil court anymore. This is criminal. She committed fraud. Can we use that? Absolutely. And we will. The hearing was set for August 14th, 2024, 2 months after they'd paved my pasture. 2 months of sitting on that tractor, watching cars turn around, watching Victoria's empire crumble. The night before court, I stood in the pasture one last time. The road gleamed under the stars, black, permanent, wrong. But tomorrow, I'd start the process of erasing it, of taking back what they'd stolen. I whispered to the night air, to my father's memory, to the land itself, this ends tomorrow. And I believed it. The courthouse in Bozeman was smaller than I expected. Just a brick building with a faded flag and a parking lot full of trucks. But inside, it smelled like Justice old wood, fresh coffee, and the quiet tension of people about to have their day in court. Grace met me by the entrance, dressed in a sharp suit that meant business. Ready? Born ready. Good, because Victoria's bringing her A-team. But we've got something better. What's that? The truth. Inside, the courtroom was already packed. Silver Creek residents filled half the gallery, some supporting Victoria, others just there to watch the show. Ben Caldwell sat in the front row, tipping his hat at me. Thomas Reed was there too, looking nervous but determined. And then there was Victoria, sitting at the plaintiff's table in that damn crimson blazer, whispering to her lawyer, a slick-looking man with too much hair gel and a smile that screamed, I bill by the minute. The bailiff called us to order. Judge Patricia Holbrook entered mid-60s, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who'd seen every trick in the book and wouldn't tolerate new ones. "All right," she said, settling into her chair. "This is the case of Morgan versus Silver Creek Estates HOA. Mr. Morgan alleges illegal trespass and construction on private property. The HOA claims they have legal authority under community improvement bylaws. Counselors, let's hear it." Victoria's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, Silver Creek Estates acted in good faith to improve community infrastructure. The road in question provides essential access for 30 families. Mr. Community Morgan's refusal to cooperate has endangered public safety and violated the spirit of community cooperation." Grace stood up slowly. "Your Honor, with respect to counsel, there's no such thing as spirit of community cooperation when it comes to property law. The HOA built a road on land they don't own, didn't ask permission to use, and falsified permits to cover their tracks. That's not cooperation, that's theft." She dropped a thick binder on the table. The sound echoed through the courtroom. "This," Grace said, "is the evidence." For the next 2 hours, Grace dismantled the HOA's case piece by piece. She showed property deeds proving I owned every inch of that pasture, survey maps confirming the road crossed my land by 200 yards, photos of destroyed fences and buried markers. Then came the financial records. "Your Honor," Grace said, pulling up a spreadsheet, "these are HOA expenditures for the past year. Note the line item, South Access Road, $47,000. This was paid to a contractor called Frontier Development LLC." She paused for effect. "We called Frontier Development. The number goes to a voicemail. The address is a P.O. box in Billings. The business license expired in 2019. In other words, the company doesn't exist." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Victoria's face went pale. Furthermore, Grace continued, "HOA meeting minutes show no vote approving this road, no board discussion. No member consent, just one person's signature on the authorization form." She projected the document on the screen. Victoria Ashford's signature, bold and clear. Mrs. Ashford acted alone, using HOA funds to build a road on private property without permission, authorization, or legal standing. The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Ashford, is this accurate?" Victoria stood, smoothing her blazer. "Your Honor, I acted in the best interest of the community. The road was necessary. That's not what I asked. Did you obtain Mr. Morgan's permission?" We sent a letter. A letter is not permission." "Did you get written consent?" Silence. "Did you file for permits with the county?" More silence. Judge Holbrook removed her glasses. "Mrs. Ashford, sit down." Victoria sank back into her chair like a deflated balloon. The judge turned to Grace. "Continue." Grace called her first witness, Thomas Reed, HOA board member. He testified that Victoria routinely bypassed board votes, made unilateral decisions, and intimidated members who disagreed. "She told us the road was already approved," Thomas said. "When I asked to see the paperwork, she said it was handled at the county level. I believed her." Next came Ben Caldwell, who testified about property boundaries and the history of the Morgan Ranch. "That pasture's been Morgan land since 1947, Ben said. "Everyone in the county knows it. Building a road there without asking is like walking into someone's house and redecorating their living room." The courtroom chuckled. Judge Holbrook didn't. Finally, Grace called me to the stand. "Mr. Morgan," she said, "when did you first learn about the road?" "The morning they were paving it. I woke up to construction engines and found them tearing through my pasture." "Did anyone from the HOA contact you beforehand?" "No." "Did you give permission?" "Absolutely not." "What did you do when you discovered the road?" "I told them to leave. Then I blocked it with my tractor to prevent further trespassing." Grace nodded. No further questions. Victoria's lawyer tried to cross-examine. "Mr. Morgan, isn't it true you've been hostile to the HOA for years?" "I've been protective of my property, yes." "And isn't it true you've refused to cooperate with community improvements?" "I've refused to let strangers steal my land. If that's uncooperative, guilty as charged." The gallery laughed. The judge banged her gavel. "Mr. Morgan," the lawyer pressed, "don't you think a road through unused pasture is a reasonable compromise for community benefit?" "No," I said flatly, "because it's not unused. It's my land. My cattle graze there. My father's ashes are scattered there. And it's not yours to compromise with." The courtroom went silent. When closing arguments came, Grace delivered a speech that should have been recorded for law schools. "Your Honor, this case is simple. Mrs. Ashford took something that wasn't hers. She didn't ask. She didn't pay. She just took. That's not community improvement. That's theft. And the law is clear. You can't build on land you don't own. The HOA must remove the road, restore the property, and compensate Mr. Morgan for damages." Victoria's lawyer tried to argue about community needs and good faith, but it was too late. The evidence had spoken. Judge Holbrook took exactly 15 minutes to decide. This court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Daniel Morgan. The road was constructed illegally on private property without permission or permits. Silver Creek Estates HOA is ordered to remove the road within 30 days, restore the land to its original condition, and pay $75,000 in damages for trespass and property destruction. She turned to Victoria. "Mrs. Ashford, I'm also recommending the county prosecutor review this case for potential fraud charges. You're dismissed." The gavel came down like thunder. Victoria's face went from pale to crimson. Her lawyer whispered frantically, but the damage was done. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. Grace shook my hand. "Congratulations, Daniel. You just won the fight of your life." "No," I said, looking at the mountains in the distance. "I just protected what was already mine." That night, I drove back to the ranch. The tractor still sat in the middle of the road, hay bales stacked like a fortress. I climbed into the cab, started the engine, and moved it aside. Not because the fight was over, but because tomorrow, the real work began, tearing out that asphalt and planting grass where it belonged. As I parked the tractor in the barn, I heard the sound of truck engines. Ben and 3 other ranchers were pulling up, pickaxes and shovels in their truck beds. "Heard you won," Ben called out. "Figured you could use some help tearing up that road." I smiled. "Beers are in the fridge. Let's get to work." By sunrise, we'd ripped out the first 50 yards of asphalt. By sunset, the road was gone, just dirt and memories remaining. And as I stood in that pasture, boots sinking into the soil my grandfather had worked, I realized something. Victoria tried to erase me. Instead, she'd just reminded everyone why you don't mess with Montana ranchers. The land remembers, and so do we. 3 weeks after the verdict, the county sent inspectors to oversee the full removal. Professional crews arrived with equipment, jackhammers, backhoes, dump trucks, tearing up every inch of Victoria's illegal road. I watched from the porch, coffee in hand, as they hauled away the asphalt chunk by chunk. Each piece felt like justice being served cold and permanent, but the story wasn't over, not by a long shot. Because while the road was being destroyed, something else was being built, a community tired of being ruled by fear. The morning after the verdict, my phone started ringing. First call was from Martha Henderson, elderly woman who'd lived in Silver Creek since before it was even Silver Creek. "Daniel," she said, voice trembling with something between anger and relief, "I want to testify about Victoria, about what she did to us." "The trial's over, Martha. Not for the criminal investigation." The prosecutor called. Said they're building a fraud case. I told them I have records. Records of what? Everything. Every fine she invented. Every fee she charged without board approval. Every time she threatened someone into silence. I've been saving it all for 3 years, waiting for someone brave enough to fight back. I sat down heavily. How many people did she do this to? Dozens, maybe more. Over the next week, I learned the full extent of Victoria's operation. She'd been running Silver Creek Estates like a personal fiefdom, using HOA funds as her private bank account. The fake contractor, Frontier Development LLC, was registered to a P.O. box she controlled. Every invoice she'd submitted for community improvements had gone straight into that account. The road through my pasture? Just her latest scheme, funded by homeowners who thought their fees were going toward legitimate projects. Thomas Reed stopped by one afternoon carrying a box of documents. "These are the real financial records," he said. "The ones she didn't want the board to see." We spread them across my kitchen table, invoice after invoice for projects that never happened. Tree trimming service, $12,000. Community sign refurbishment, $8,500. Emergency drainage repair, $15,000. None of it existed. All of it went to Frontier Development. She stole over $200,000, Thomas said quietly, from her own neighbors. Does the prosecutor know? As of this morning, yes. I drove these straight to his office. I looked at the documents, feeling something shift inside me. This wasn't just about my land anymore. This was about every person Victoria had bullied, silenced, or stolen from. "Thomas," I said, "we need to talk to everyone she hurt, get their stories on record." He nodded. "I'll make calls." Over the next 2 weeks, we organized what Ben Caldwell called the Great HOA Reckoning. 37 Silver Creek residents came forward with complaints, evidence, and testimony about Victoria's reign of terror. Mr. Patterson testified she'd fined him $500 for planting roses instead of peonies flowers that weren't even mentioned in the bylaws. Sarah Rodriguez testified Victoria had charged her family $800 for unauthorized mailbox replacement after Victoria's own contractor damaged the original. Martin Cho testified he'd been threatened with legal action for hanging a Tibetan prayer flag. Victoria called it non-compliant decoration. Each story added weight to the prosecutor's case. And each one revealed the same pattern. Victoria didn't just break rules, she invented them. Then she charged people for breaking rules that didn't exist. Grace Patterson, my attorney, was brought in by the prosecutor to help organize the evidence. One evening, she stopped by the ranch, looking grimmer than I'd ever seen her. "Daniel," she said, "this is bigger than we thought. The fraud charges alone could put her away for 5 years. But there's more." "More?" She forged HOA board signatures, falsified meeting minutes, even created fake email accounts to impersonate board members who disagreed with her decisions. I whistled low. She really thought she'd never get caught. "Sociopaths usually do," Grace said. "They get so good at lying, they start believing their own stories." The media caught wind of the story. First, the Bozeman Daily Chronicle ran a headline, "Local Rancher Defeats HOA Land Grab." Then, regional news picked it up. By the end of September, I was fielding interview requests from national outlets. I declined most of them. But I did sit down with a young reporter from Montana Public Radio, a woman named Jenny Reeves, who seemed genuinely interested in the property rights angle, not just the scandal. "Mr. Morgan," she asked during our interview, "what would you say to other people dealing with HOA overreach?" I thought about it for a moment. Document everything. Keep records. Don't let them intimidate you into silence. And remember, bylaws don't trump property law. They can make all the rules they want, but those rules end at your property line. Do you think this will change how HOAs operate? I hope so. But more than that, I hope it reminds people that power unchecked always turns into abuse. Victoria thought she could do whatever she wanted because nobody stopped her. Until somebody did. The interview aired that weekend. Within hours, I started getting emails from people across the country, homeowners fighting their own HOAs, dealing with similar harassment and theft. One message stuck with me. "I'm a veteran in Florida. My HOA fined me for flying the American flag. Said it violated aesthetic standards. Your story gave me the courage to fight back." Thank you. I printed that email and taped it to my fridge. Some fights are bigger than just your own land. By mid-October, the criminal case was moving forward. Victoria was indicted on 14 counts: fraud, embezzlement, forgery, theft, and criminal trespass. Her bail was set at $100,000, money she no longer had after being forced to pay the $75,000 judgment to me, plus legal fees for the HOA. She tried to flee, made it as far as the Billings airport before federal marshals picked her up. Turns out, fleeing during a fraud investigation adds more charges to your list. The trial was set for February 2025. But before it even started, Victoria's lawyer approached Grace with a deal. She'll plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. Grace told me over the phone, 5 years in prison, full restitution to all victims, permanent ban from serving on any HOA board. What do you think? I think she's terrified of going to trial. The evidence is overwhelming. If this goes to a jury, she's looking at 20 years minimum. Then she should be terrified, I said. Tell them she can plead guilty. But I want every dollar she stole from the community returned. And I want a public apology. Grace laughed. Daniel, she'll never apologize. Then I guess we'll see her in court. 3 days later, Victoria's lawyer called back. She'd agreed to the terms. All of them. The plea hearing was scheduled for November 18th, 2024. I drove to Bozeman with Ben, Thomas, and a dozen other Silver Creek residents. We filled the gallery, silent and united. Victoria was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, wrists shackled. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The crimson blazer and red heels were gone, replaced by county-issue canvas and rubber slides. Judge Holbrook read the charges, all 14 counts. Victoria pled guilty to each one, voice barely above a whisper. Then came the apology. Mrs. Ashford, the judge said, the terms of your plea agreement include a public statement of accountability. Do you wish to make that statement now? Victoria's lawyer nudged her. She stood slowly, hands trembling. She stopped, cleared her throat. I abused my position as HOA president. I stole money from my community. I built a road on Mr. Morgan's property without permission. I hurt people who trusted me, and I'm sorry. The words came out flat, rehearsed, but they were on the record. Judge Holbrook accepted the plea. Mrs. Ashford, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years in Montana State Prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. You will pay full restitution $218,000 to be distributed among victims as determined by the court. You are permanently banned from serving on any homeowners association board in the state of Montana. Do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor. Then may you use this time to reflect on the damage you've caused. Court dismissed. The gavel fell. Victoria was led away by marshals. As she passed our row, she glanced at me just for a second. I saw no remorse, no understanding, just anger that she'd been caught. Some people never learn. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Thomas Reed gave a statement on behalf of Silver Creek residents. Today marks the end of a dark chapter for our community. We're grateful to Mr. Creek, Morgan, for having the courage to stand up when no one else would. And we're committed to rebuilding Silver Creek as a place of respect, transparency, and actual community, not dictatorship. I didn't give a statement. Just tipped my hat to the cameras and drove home. By December, the road was completely gone. The pasture had been reseeded with native grass. Fences were rebuilt exactly where they'd stood before. And the $75,000 from the judgment? I used half to pay Grace's legal fees. The other half went into a fund for other ranchers fighting HOA encroachment, because this fight wasn't just mine. It was everyone's who'd ever been told. Their land, their rights, their heritage didn't matter as much as someone else's aesthetic standards. Christmas came with 3 feet of snow. The ranch looked like a postcard, white fields, dark pines, smoke rising from the chimney. I stood on the porch Christmas morning, watching cattle move through the snow where Victoria's Road used to be. My phone rang. Grace Patterson. Merry Christmas, Daniel. Same to you, Grace. What's up? Just wanted to let you know the restitution payment started going out yesterday. Every Silver Creek resident who was defrauded is getting their money back. That's good news. There's more. The state legislature is considering a bill called the Morgan Act. It would require HOAs to get written consent before any construction on adjacent properties, increase transparency requirements, and create criminal penalties for falsifying HOA records. I was quiet for a moment. They're naming it after me? You changed the law, Daniel. Might as well get credit for it. After we hung up, I sat in my father's old chair, looking at the photograph on the mantel. 3 generations of Morgan men, my grandfather, my father, and me. All of us standing in the same pasture, separated by decades but connected by the land. They'd protected it. And now, so had I. That spring, when the snow melted and grass began growing over the scar where Victoria's road had been, something beautiful happened. Wildflowers bloomed along the old road path, lupines, Indian paintbrush, columbine, like the earth was reclaiming itself. Ben Caldwell stopped by one April morning, leaning on the fence. "Land's healing fast. Always does," I said. "Just needed the weight lifted off." "You hear Victoria's already trying to get early release? For good behavior?" I laughed. She doesn't know the meaning of the phrase. Prison Review Board denied it. Said she showed no genuine remorse. Guess that apology wasn't convincing. We stood in comfortable silence, watching clouds move across the Bridger Range. Finally, Ben said, "You know what you did, right? You didn't just save your land. You saved a lot of people from a lot of pain." I just stood my ground. That's all it takes sometimes. One person willing to say no. He was right. In the months after the trial, I'd received letters from dozens of homeowners inspired to fight their own HOA battles. Some won, some lost, but all of them tried. And that mattered, because the real victory wasn't destroying Victoria or winning in court. It was showing people that power, even power dressed in a crimson blazer and carrying a clipboard, isn't permanent. It only lasts as long as people let it. By summer, Silver Creek Estates had transformed. Thomas Reed's board eliminated half the bylaws, reduced monthly fees by 40%, and created an oversight committee to prevent future abuse. They even renamed the community center after Martha Henderson, the woman who'd kept records of Victoria's crimes. One evening in July, they invited me to a community barbecue. I almost didn't go, not really a crowd person, but Ben convinced me. When I arrived, the whole neighborhood was there. Kids running through sprinklers, families grilling burgers, music playing from someone's Bluetooth speaker. Thomas greeted me with a handshake and a beer. "Daniel Morgan," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "the man who saved us from tyranny and gave us our community back." People applauded. I felt my face go red. "I didn't save anyone," I said, "just protected my own dirt." Martha Henderson walked over, smiling. "You did more than that, dear. You showed us it was okay to fight back, to stand up, to say no. That's worth more than any road or bylaw." Throughout the evening, people came up to thank me, to share their own stories of Victoria's harassment, to tell me how much lighter life felt without fear of arbitrary fines and manufactured violations. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting everything gold, I realized something. This was what community was supposed to be. Not rules and regulations and property value obsessions, just people sharing space, respecting boundaries, and helping each other when needed. Victoria had tried to create a perfect neighborhood by controlling every detail. Instead, she'd created a prison where everyone walked on eggshells. Now, with her gone, the place was finally free. I drove home that night under a sky full of stars. The same stars my grandfather saw when he first homesteaded this land in 1947. The same stars my father gazed at while working cattle. The same stars that would watch over whoever comes next. The pasture was dark, peaceful, whole. No scar, no road. Just grass and cattle, and the knowledge that this land would remain Morgan land for as long as anyone cared to protect it. Victoria thought she could pave over me, erase me, take what 3 generations had built and turn it into her shortcut to somewhere else. She was wrong, because some things don't change. The land endures, the mountains stand. And Montana ranchers? We don't quit. We don't roll over. We dig in, stand firm, and protect what matters. That's not stubbornness. That's legacy. And as I climbed the porch steps, the sound of crickets filling the summer air, I knew one thing for certain. They can build all the roads they want, paint all the lines, plant all the stop signs, but they'll never own this ground. Not today. Not ever. This land is mine, and it always will be.